ሰላም ከመይ ትኾኑ? All right. Welcome to Habesha Education أحوات. All right. ከምቲ ትሪእዎ ዘለኹም ከዓ ሎማ ዓንቲ one of the big days ታ እዚኣ ብዛዕባ ፌደራል ንፅበያ መዓልቲ big day so ወላ ቁርጡ እኳ እንተዝፀበና ግን እንታይ እዮም ክብሉ ንዝብል ሕቶ ኢና ክንምልስ hold on let me do this thing أحوات. All right. The phone is buzzing here. All right, perfect. So, sorry, camera يبلنان كم تلمد لما عنتون. نحن إيش All right, what? Okay. All right. I hope the fun is cutting. Yeah, that's good one, Benny. Let's figure out. We have show عتر نزين حلف كنا بلنا حوات قرأتها. انتهينا خنصب زلنا كاف فدرال. كل شيء ربع قرب convenient type كنا مجمرة. Let's back to this. 3 سنة بخم كيدنا. What we are waiting for this week. I hope share الله مثل. Can you see that the word? Yes. Big deals. أبدو سومن الزر إحوات. بتاعت خنجمر جيروم باول. Yeah. FOMC meeting today. Yeah. تثبيت نورا إكاد. Maybe. Wow. زخونة نجار نحرال لي خا. Let's see. If not 0.25. I don't think so. But منال بعد. Let's get it red. But let's get it نزي نورا red card كا yellow. So እንታይ ይኽብል ግን ትቐንዲ ኢምፖርታንት ጀሮም ፓወል ኣብዘረብኡ ወይ ከዓ ክዛረብ ከሎ ገለ ዓይነት ቡልሽ ይሂበና ዶ ማለት ዝኾነ ነገር ምክንያቱ ስለምንታይ ኢና ዘለና እዘን ክልተ ነጥቢ እዚአን ቁሩብ ክቕይዶ እኽእላ ዶ ንጀሮም ፓወል ለማዓንቲ ሶ እንታይ ዝብለን ዘለኹ እዘን ክልተ ነጥቢ እዚኣተን እንታይ እየን ዝብላ መጀመርያ ቀዳም የስ ፅባሕ ቀዳም and ሰንበት ኣብ ስዊዘርላንድ China and the United States talk بزعبا قرص مالتي حنتي so اتي قرب كويلنا نبره تخفيتي مثل سلازي ابزي China and USA مجمار ولا خوني خلي انتاي كمصي خلي خنرينا I think so تميتنا 45 زلو قرص قبل على China most probably China ديل كتقبر نحر كينا ازي تطو ناي مبال كنرئ نخلنا can we stop this So زي آخر أنا خلنا زي أنا جنب تحوات مجمرة. So كله اتزهوبنا ديل كابو جميرهم نخندي وسد حدا نريعيو. الموجن لكتس تحوات ترامب big announcement زبلنا زي عباينا قرية أنتي مخانا we don't know. Big announcement زبلنا expect قدمي سوني زلو. مالت صباح خوني خليو عرب خوني خليو سوني ناين جو خوني خليو. እዚ እንታይ ክኸውን ይኽእል ምናልባት ናይ ዲል ምስተን ከባቢ 17 ሃገራት ዲልስ ዳርጋ ወዲእና ኣለና ወይ እውን ጽቡቕ ምልልስ ከም ዘለዎም ዝነግሩ ዘለዉ እዘር ናተን ዲል ደሂበና ኾኑ ሓደ ሕዝዋ እዚኣ እዛ ናተን ዲል ድዩ ሓደ ኦር ምናልባት ሓደ ዩኒቨርሳል ወይ ከዓ ስቕልካ ምስቲ ዘሎ ቤዝላይን ሜቢ 20% ንኹለን በቃ ዶ ኣናውስ ገብር ይኽእል Trump كلته ويكا كابترد واتس عادي خزارب سلسة so زي أن كلتي أن نلوم عن تقرب نجرم باول يلوت أودو قال نجر إيبل دويا so أبزا سومن زي أجن this week big نجر كدامن سنبت كدامن سنبتن yes أب سويسرلاند بزعبا China قالنا then Trump أنت عنت يملك تاخذنا that's the most important سزين كلن إن جيروم باول زين 3 سنة بدأت حواتنا هجين. Alright, let's back. هجي نابتو report خنكيرنا almost 4 دقائق لنا انتاي نتصبع. بجمر يا سيمي فد كن قبرعنا زيها. ስለዚህ መይሎም ማዓንቲ 67 ወልሓንቲ ዝኾነ ናይ ፕሮጀክት ዝኾነ ወይ ከዓ ዝኾነ ሳመሪ ጥራሕ ይኽህልወና ዝኽእል እምበር ከምዚ ክኸውን ኢሉ ነዚ ዝሓለፈ ዝነበረ ፒዲኤፍ ነዚ ዝቕይር ሎም ማዓንቲ የብልናን ስለዚ ንመፃኢ ኢሎም ዝሃቡና እዮም ኦራይት ኣብ ሎም ማዓንቲ መጀመርያ ኣብ ሕቶታት ክንፅበየን ዘለና ኣሕዋት ራእይኒ ጀሮም ፓወል ክሕተት እዩ እንታይ ክሕተት እዩ ፎር ሹር ናይ ጂዲፒ 1.7 ክውዲ እዩ ኢልካና ነርካ ኣብ 2025 ሕጂ ግን ኔጌቲቭ 0.3 ኣለና so what do you think still ትፅበየ ዳኻ እዚ ሕቶ እዚ እንታይ መልሲ ክምልሰ ይኽንሪኦ ኢና ካልእ unemployment rate ክሳብ ሕጂ ዘለና 4.2 እዩ ዘሎ so ትፅቢትካ መወዳእታ ናይ 2025 4.4 እዩ እዚ እውን ክሕተት እዩ ካልእ PCE inflation as of now 2.3 ኣለና እዚ እንታይ ትፅቢትካ maybe ናብ 2.9 ድኽብል ወይ ከዓ ከምኡ ስታዲ ድኽብል مزيان سلسة حتتات زتأثر كحتاتي انتاي ملس very important ين أحوال زينا قدسين بتعمي مسناي GDP unemployment rate and PCE مزيان تأثر حتتات زمن لسان ملسي حسينا قدستين نرأيا so قال as of now نحنا current زلنا Fed's fund rate 4.25 to 450 تسعان شوعات نت بشوعات percent no rate كاتب لنا دل 1 minute left حانت دقة تريف الله so زين جن كايتر السعوان من البعد لقتي سحوات دحرك نقصلان خلينا let's go this is summary alright 1 minute left حانت دقة تريف الله 1 minute يا كل شيء let's QQ قال لو تنتحريو أبزينا هري QQ as of now it's down Nasdaq ماليتو very down let's see if there is زي أنا لو تنخري نخلينا maybe 82 83 84 كوري أنا خلينا if there is any news okay بزي أخال لهندان إشتي كمبيوتر نرى أخايا it's time it is time something should up now get it there you go PDF no nothing yeah nothing for sure let's see بيسخن كده حشنا حوات أبزي حشنا nothing yep nothing Fed leaves rate unchanged as of expected. Yeah, well, hanti loti ay gaborin. That's the report. May 7, 2 p.m. Okay, so surprise ay rakhabnan. Ay korotsun Fed's fund rate comes lata as of 4.25 to 450. Kam aylalla ay tsabbana actually. Malit not major icon 99% so. Okay, Fed's fund rate let's go this 4.33 yeah تثبيت 9 نبر نحوات ግን ምናልባት ዶ ይመጽእ ዝብል ነሩ ስለዚህ no rate cut okay ጀሮም ፓወል እንታ ክብል ይትቀንዲ መሰረት አይ 30 ደቂቃ ኣለና ኣሕዋት ኣብዚ እንታ ክብል ክደግማ እዚኣ we don't need this it's not a big deal ባዕሉ ክዛረብ መጽዩ ነዚኣ ክደግማ ንእሽተይ ኣብ ማርች ዝሃብና March zahabna tasamari okay yes so زين سلسين كر لنا بزعبا GDP حتى بزعبا unemployment حتى أنا بزعبا PC حتى alright زين ده حركينا انتاي نتصبه نزبل حتى نيش تكن زارب نحوات maybe Trump كم زرعنا يتسفالو okay وي لوم وي سوري وي صباح وي دحر صباح زخونه بيج اناونسمنت الله most probably بزعبا تاريخ يكون زخل so جن جيروم باول ريدو الله فيليب نخجبر اي مسلنا still زي ما حسيتي غري was law بالتاريخ يكون بقاله جنا لوتي بقلطف زباله ايكر نخل نعبنت ماي 10 سلسته دمص سومن تويسداي ناي CPI ريبورت علنا نرينا schedule ناب CPI كن مزين حوات look this alright ناي ور حربعته result ويكا وصيت inflation ويكا زقبابه ماي 10 سلسته إنا هنركب alright إذا أنت هاي تصبه دس بل أنت هاي نتصبه لكم ولا حنتي معناته تعرف أب أبريل سلزاتوه right away نريو أيقونة كما أسنا هنري ناي ور حموشته ناي زهج زلنا يتعرف تقولوا أبجون 10 حدا نريو أن ناي ور حشدشته أبجلاي 10 حموشة نريو and then ناي جولاي أب أغسطس 10 خلته most probably ناي زي سلسته ور حزي report كرن خلينا So معاسنا خريون خيل نزب الحتة أوكي تعريف نبولو دحان مش تشاينا سمع مسيو ويون ترامب قال announcement غير هون وي universal نخلن 20 لوت أو كبل خيل so this still كابور حموشته كاب زلنايو بزيادة أور حشدشن أور حشوعتني أب كتبا ما حسيت خفتر تخل so أور حشدشن أور حشوعتني مور ما حسيت خفتر تخل شعو ناي ورح شدشه ورح شوعته ورح شو منطقة زنا كم مسكرم عصرت حدا زلني نو ريبورت ناي سي بي اي مصر خمنا I guess كاوينا slow down كرر نخل كاو most probably كرر زخل ما عس كندي جزي كات قبري أم هجي alright ورح شدشه خمس يمستير على تعصرت شوعته قبل عصر شو منطقة ورح شوعته خمس يم إسران شعتن ثلاثة مسكرم عصر شدشه عصر شوعته خمس يم سلزي most probably ورح شدشن ورح شوعتن زي كرر نخلي نحوال كم مسكرم نينو كرر نخلنا maybe ثلاثة جزء لو مسكرم قارت كل يوم and then like ورح ساعات ورح عصرت حدا جزء ورح عصرت حدا أبزي maybe 0.25 0.50 1% كالي قارت كل يوم maybe so this is the probability نانزر بدنا الحجوات زي أجن كنقول كلنا if Trump أنت ودي واتها تعرف تبهال بسم مع عبزالن كني so مودة هذا عمد جن يا كم مسكرم كرر نخلنا هنياتو سيمي فيد نحركنا as of June no rate cut تحوات 425 450 no rate cut maybe جلس هذا اللي نحر تغيره as of July even still most probably 27 not rate cut well August yellen by the way September yeah we see September 5% مسكرم so technically is the probability زي نحنا انت زي تقاقي as of now كساب مسكرم maybe rate cut هيكرر نخلنا سنك تعريف مالتي إذا كنت غير خلو yes غير خلي حدا زغيرون تاعي مسيلكم زي alright interest وكا inflation كمسينا لنا unemployment rate غير خلي زي last week نبر report look this number انت تغيره USA unemployment rate 4% زلو maybe هجرايم أبزي ناي كلتشان 25 أتاويتات ناي قداماي ربعي ويكا ناي Q1 كلن كامباني تصبو earning دارجة رخيبا اوكي bad report نبرن سلازي كاب هجي كن slow down اندحر كوينو كاب هجي نقرات اندا slow اندحر كوينو maybe بزح فاير قبرا خلان هجي أبزو ورح شدشة ورح شوعاته ورح قاله then up Q2 خنمت كولنا earning up July أو ورح شوعاته أتاويتات كنقرا خلوها كامباني تات maybe unemployment هاي خيري خليو so زي تحسبه ورح شوعاته قالنا rate cut then ورح شوعاته مسيوم hey we're gonna just cut كبلو كل يوم right away دحر ورح yes ناتو data إيه جند غيره إذا unemployment rate maybe 4.5 like 4.4 كون اللي على خمس انت خيله سلازي stock market نا it's S&P is down S&P is down and the Nasdaq is down. Nasdaq is down almost 0.79%. S&P is 0.29. Down is up a little 0.23. So VIX is up 2.54. تقندقن Trump انتاي statement كبلي أتقندي. Yeah, it's just like you know. كن سمع عشاننا دسي بلنا ولا حنت سنارة big زي red remove the خوني by the way تغير ماليت so yeah it's big drop Tesla is big drop like 271 Tesla اندحر تحتي خلته 170 470 3 كلوز تقرا لومي maybe ناب كلته 170 قطعين هري انخل لعل 273 اندحر كلوز غيرا ግን could be okay كريا نخلنا ናብ 280 አንገጻ ማለት ካብዚ ታሕቲ እንድሕር ክልተ ካብዚ በቃ ካብ 274 እንድታሕቲ እንድሕር ክሎዝ ገይራሎም ማዓንቲ at the end of the day ግን ያ ጽባሕ maybe 260 ክሪያ ንኸልና QQ look this down big drop that line is sharp from here to here and Nvidia big drop it's all companies are big drop so yeah ማለት what he's going to say እንታይ ክብል ይትቀንዲ አይ ንሱ ክዛረብ ከሎ look this maybe switch ግን ምልክታት ናይ rate cut አሎዶ ኣብዛ ዓመዚ ንዝብል ሕቶ ግን ያ ትራምፕ ኩልኩም መልሶ ዝኽእል ማለት yeah this is really like pain of market is a lot like كله ግን ምስ ናይ ቀረጽ ተኣሰር ጥራሕ still ተም ድሕርኩም ዝኣተኹም ክንደግመን big ናይ ዝሰሙን እዚ ያ trade talk ኣብ ስዊዘርላንድ China and the United States ጽቡቕ ዘሎ ኣብ ልዕሊ China 145% ተገይሩ ዘሎ trade maybe ያ stop ይገብሮ ዶ የእሰ ነቲ ዝርብ ስሙዝ ንኸይድ ነቲ ዝርብ ስሙዝ ንኸይድ እዚ ጠጠው ብልዎ ዶ ካልእ ትራምፕ ጽባሕ ወይ ድሕር ጽባሕ ወይ ሶኒ ሓደ ኣናውንስመንት ሓደ ምልክት ኣለኒ ዓቢ ነገር ኢልና ኣሎ እንታይ ይኽብለና ነተን 17 ድል ገርና ኣለና ዝብላ ዘለዋ ዲ ክነግረና ወላስ ዝኾነ like universal ወይ ከዓ ንኹለን 10% ጥራይሉ ድዩ ታሪፍ ክዕጽዎ እንታይ ይኽብል ክንሰምዕ ኢና then Jerome Powell no rate cut yes cut ka ይገበረሎም ማዓንቲ not this one so entire Jerome Powell ka ድሕሪ almost 19 ደቂቃ ንሰምዕ እዚን ሰለስተ እንግዳ ገደስትየን alright ስንዳራ ኣና right let's go stop this yeah probably kabari he's not open let's see yeah well تحانيق you I don't think so oh ድምጽ ያለ እንዲህዋት ድምጽ ስማዕ አለምሽ like ድምጽ ይሰማል ዘሎ I hope so so አይመስለንም ትራምፕ ኩሪያ ናምበር ዳርጋ ያ አኸር በጽሐተላ ባህል እዩ
And we'll have maybe before we're going to, as you know, the Middle East and Saudi Arabia. We're going to UAE and Qatar. And that'll be, I guess, Monday night. Some of you are coming with us. I think before then, we're going to have a very, very big announcement to make. Like as big as it gets. And I won't tell you on what. But it's going to, and it's very positive. I tell you if it was negative or positive. I can't keep that up. It is really, really positive. And that announcement will be made either Thursday or Friday or Monday before we leave. But it'll be one of the most important announcements that have been made in many years about a certain subject, very important subject. So you'll all be here. And we'll have maybe before we're going to, as you know, the Middle East and Saudi Arabia. We're going to UAE and Qatar. And that'll be, I guess, Monday night. Some of you are coming with us. I think before then, we're going to have a very, very big announcement to make, like as big as it gets. And I won't tell you on what, but it's going to, and it's very positive. I tell you if it was negative or positive. I can't keep that up. It is really, really positive.
Well, look this, Awad. It is most probably there is a big announcement. So, entire big announcement, we don't know. ምትእስሳር ግን ምስ ታሪፍ ክኸውን ንጽበ ብትክክል ምስ ታሪፍ ክኸውን ወይ ከዓ ምስ ቀረጽ ክኸውን ንጽበ let's see ናይ China president I'm looking forward talking ties corporations with Putin okay now traders still price in 3 Fed rate cut this year well like ሰለስተ rate cut this year ይብልለው still hope ወይ ከዓ ተስፋ ኣለና okay that sounds high. So by July cut ክገብሩ ይኽእሉ እዮም as you see guys as of now yeah current maybe أنا كنا cap July okay حراي 55% as of now rate cut كله خلي to me in the حرزتها in I tariff قالوا توديو maybe yes July if not can cap September October and December يخون خل but 3 cut كله أنا خلي that's fair yeah 3 cut كله خلي yeah so Fed vote in favor of policy was like anonymous. Okay, good. Fair unemployment rate has stabilized. Yeah, unemployment rate has stabilized at low level. Labor market is conditions remain solid. Yes, then inflation remains somewhat elevated. I don't see that. Come on. Interest rate is decision is 4.1. Okay. Yeah, Trump in okay. China should be okay. Reasons so as for the million who are global outcomes and maybe breaking Trump no potential for pulling back tariff on China. Holy shit. No way بلالو Trump. Well, I don't know. Like is he أحوات نتاعنا هنقبر مسيلكم. I'm not sure. Like ولا Trump هم تبل I possibly not because I think so China when they say no. تو كاين قبرنا خلو خليهم. China on more economically تهاسيم علو. Yeah. أنت بو let me show you this أحوات. This is gonna be big. Where you go? Yeah, Jerome Powell كنت بين حوات. We have 14 minutes. Let me show you this source. أنت بين بباني رناي مكاين واقعات كم زوج سخ. Okay, yes, cars rising. Yeah, thanks of this one. Look this حوات. It's already ناي مكاين tariff دارجة 25% on coin low. So مكاين كم خبر أم زارو بزلو so far. Increased like 4.9% from a year ago. Like أبكلتشان 20 سلسن هاينرو بجزء inflation. دارجة كابو لو ندخلنا أنا خدنا ناي مكاين يزد مكنا مالتي يزد مكنا تاريخهم CPI report let's say let me go with the CPI report we got March so أبز حلفة مارش رقمنا used مكينا almost like 12 minus nab 0.6 down كوين حوات رايوه negative بحلفي أمارش أول حسلسته negative 0.7 نيرو so as of now أبزيا سورس نري أخاب زهلنا عن وسخ قريب لنا الله inflation that is number one inflation زقبابة here you go سلزي Trump I don't think so معرف عنده heavy ويك hard خوينو خيد قبل عليه the economy مالتي but yes true انت اللي زلو yeah Trump no potential for pulling back tariffs on China okay all right but I don't think so what is the breakdown then so Trump not open to pulling back the 145 tariffs yeah by the way Trump on India Pakistan if I can help I'll be there yeah تمالي قبل على باكستان دخلنا دبداب كم زقورو نيش تحفنا نيرنا أنا تمالي بدعوه عليه so he's not willing even like زخونة exemption يقبر قال some items he's not nothing so technically like in the federal rate cut كقبر لهم راح يزبزلوا جن نسخة أنا يبعلو الجامعة يتعاوز نزلهم let's see not sure for ours okay for ours so እዚ ፌድስ ፋንድ ሬት ኣሕዋት እዚ ትሪኦ ኣለኹም ፌድስ ፋንድ ሬት ንኣብነት ከመይ ነይሩ ኣብ ግዜ ኮቪድ እዚ ትሪኦ ዘለኹም ኦልሞስት ዜሮ ነይሩ ናይዚ ዜሮ ምዃን ንሕና ኩሉ ሻዕ እዚ ምስ መን ኢና ክነተኣሳስሮ ዘለና እዚ ዜሮ ምዃን እንድሕር ኮይኑ እቲ ንሕና ሬት ንረኽቦ ናይ ገዛዲ ናይ ሞርገጅ ንሱ ለወር ይኸውን ማለት እዩ ኣዞፍ ናው ንሓንቲ ገዛ ንክትገዝእ እንድሕር ኮንካ ኮንቬክሽናል ሎን እንድሕር ጥቀማሊ ኢኻ 6.86% ኣለካ ማለት እዩ ክትከፍል so we need እቲ ፌድስ ፋንድ ሬት እንድሕር ዳውን ኮይኑ ዋላ ዳይሬክት ኣይፅለዎ ንዑ እምበር technically indirect it easy money am market ይመጽእ ኣሎ ማለት እዩ so easy money am market ንኻይመጽእ ወይ ከዓ ንኽመጽእ እንድሕር ኮይኑ እዚኣ ዳውን ክትኮን ኣለዋ ከም ዝሓለፈ ንህለኩም ኣብዚ ግዜ እዚ ግዜ ኮቪድ easy money am market መጽእ ነይሩ so እዚ about 0 ምስ ነበረ and then ሓንቲ ገዛ ክትገዝእ እንድሕር ለኻ almost 3% ዝወሓደ 2.6% ነይሩ ወለድ so that's easy money ኢልና ንፅውዖ ማለት እዩ So still federal now already and we are still in 4.33. Yeah, about 5.33 near 100% last year cut geramem. It down geramalo against abzia almost selesta gize digale I qoratan. China rate cut gera ab European rate cut go low. Only USA not doing this. Okay, yeah. Big drop, little up. I don't know why there is something. Yeah, little tick up. Tesla is up and then a little bit, yeah. QQ is a little tick up. What is this? Let me what is the index in here? Wow, look this hot. Fed flags stagflation risk. Stagflation is very hard. Okay, let me stagflation. All right, let me do this. Jerome Powell we have 8 minutes. Stagflation red flag ኮይኑ ለብልናሎ. What is stagflation technically ትርጉማ? Let me go with this Google. Simple term. Stagflation ዝበሃል economic slow down economic growth ክኾን ከሎ okay ሕዝን እያ and then unemployment ka high ክኾን ከሎ and then inflation ka rise ገብር ከሎ ሰለስቲኡ ነገር let's back this stagflation እዚ unemployment እዚ high ክኸውን ይኽእል እዩ 4.5 ወይ ከዓ 6% okay am I sharing hold on let me share all my god sorry guys So stagflation technically حزكم لهم economic slowdown كله عبيت نايك قطبا كوحد كله unemployment high كون كله and then inflation كا high كون كله نبذي أنا خلنا كيد نبذي calendarsنا look this alright unemployment 4.2 ديزلو مو high كوي كون دسبلا خلنا بالخلنا no أزي تسأبه هجي ورحش الدش ورحش وعاته كم زخارة زلو ندحر حما economically الله خينو أزي high كوني خلي okay እዚኣ ሃይ እንድሕር ኮይና ሕዝን እዚኣ stagflation red flag ብሎ ሎ ሓደ እዚኣ GDP ኻ low እንድሕር ኮይና yes GDP already low ረኺብና ኣለና Q1 ገና Q2 ኻ ንሪአና ሓደ unemployment ግን ሃይዲ ዘሎ no የለን እያ but ምናልባት ካልካ እቲ CPI look this ሕዋት እዚ ከዓ CPI ኻ ሃይ ክኸውን ከሎ ማለት inflation high ክኸውን ከሎ so ዝቕባበ high ክኸውን ከሎን unemployment high ክኸውን ከሎ ቁጠባ ከዓ slow ክኸውን ከሎ እንድሕር ኢኮኖሚ slow ኮይኑ stagflation ይፍጠር so red flag ናይ stagflation ኣሎ ብልና ኣሎ look this S&P gives up again as Fed flags stagflation risk traders waiting for Powell to comment እንታይ ክዛረብ Powell ግን ሰምዓይና but not funny እዚኣ ጠቕላላ funny ኮነትን stagflation the worst ይሆን ንያት ኢኮኖሚ ኻን ዳይ ዓብልዩ ጽቕባበ እንድሕር አልዩ unemployment high እንድሕር አልዩ yeah bad okay So let's see what we see others. Yeah, still Nasdaq is down 0.72, and then S&P is down 0.23, and then Russell 2000 is down 0.09. VIX is up like 1.37. VIX volatility in market up and down معك uneasy. إذا كل شيء تحت عسرة نحر كونه fair good نبلا لعل عسرة نحر كونه كل شيء نماركت عيت أمنها up allo down allo. Alright, we have 5 minutes to go. Alright, let's go to حتتات تلينا حتتات كسب جيروم باول دمس أنا هنصبه. Let's get ready Sam هنسمعه CNBC حسنا right. Alright, CNBC أبدي أنا هنسمع okay. mostly تن حزون تن حتتات مش GDP تأثر مش inflation تأثر مش inflation تأثر مش unemployment تأثر مش قرض تأثر انتي لكم اللسي. Alright, what Trump بزخ ترامب هون الزارة بيسأني حمسلني انتايلو. Okay. Okay, nothing was. I was gonna say something. Nope, bad, still bad. Yeah. All right, let's go by Q and Hitton Melson. What about the driver speaking English and not English? Yeah, Danny. Yeah, thank you. ብዙሕ ዲፕ ኣፍሎጥ ሰርችን እሽተይ እገረላ ዛዳኒ ትራክ ድራይቨር ዝኾንኩም that's a good point. ናይ እንግሊሽ ፈተና ከለዎኩም ከም ዝኽእል እቲ እንግሊሽ ፈተና ዝፍተኖ ግን I don't think so ከቢድ ኣይክኸውንን እዩ እንታይ እዩ ነቴን ካርጎ ምንባብ እቲ ሳይን ምንባብ ምስኡ ዝተኣሰር እዚ ቀዲሞም እዮም ኩሉ ሻዕ ዝገብርዎ ነይሮም ግን እቶም እዚ ነቶም ብህጂ ዘውፅእ እንዲ ዘሎ ሓበሬታ ዘሎ ናይ ግድን ስፔሻሊ ግን ኣብቲ ናይ ትራክ ድራይቨርስ ሓበሬታታት ክትረኽቡ ትኽእሉኹም ቶም ሓደሽቲ ብዛዕባ ኢን ዲቴይል ክትከዱ ትኽእሉኹም but this is all English speakers ኮንሎም ንመን ንብርካብ ይመስልኩም I don't think so ከምዚ ንሓበሻ ንዓና ብዙሕ ፀልወና ይመስለኒ ምክንያቱ ተሪኢኹም ዘየንብብ ሓበሻ ዘየብለለን ኣብዚ ናይ ያ ስፔሻሊ ስፓኒክ እንተሪኢኹም ቋንቋ እንግሊሽ ጠቕላላ ክዛረቡ ይደልዩ ንምሕዋል they don't English ናሕሸን እዚ ናህና ናይ ስፓኒክ ቋንቋ ናሕሸን ኢሎም ዝኸዱ ክሳብ ዝኾኑ ከም ካስተመር ከማን በቃ በእንግሊሽ በስፓኒክ ክዛረቡ ካዮም ደልዩ ወላ ክትሪኦም ኣብ ዝኾነ ስራሕ ኣይፈትዎን ሕጂ ምስ ኣነ ናብኦም ምትእሳር ሞር ገይረ ዝወስዶ ማለት ሲ ሻድሻይ ክፍሊ ሻውዓይ ክፍሊ ዘይበፅሐ ዘየንብብ ናይ ካርጎ ናበይ ትኸይድ ሌፍት ሪያ ራይድ I don't think so ሕማቅ ድራይቨር ዘሎ ኣይመስለንን so ምስኦም ጥራሕ የኽተኣሳስሮ ዝኽእል ኣነ ከም ደስ በለ ዓብይ ነገር ኣይኮነን እዚ ግን ባይ ዘ ወይ ናይ ኣባማ ይገብሮ ነይሩ ትራምፕ ይገብሮ ነይሩ ገሊኡ ኣብ ሓንቲ ኮመንት ረኣኽዋስ ምዚ ሓውና ኣብ ዝቐረባ ግዜ ዘጋጠሞ ተኣሳሲሮማ ናቲን ፕሊዝ ጃጅ ኣይንግበር ቀልጢፍና ኣይ ምስኡ ጠቕላላ ይተኣሰርኒ እዚ ባይ ዘ ወይ ኣብ ናይ ኮሎራዶ ቅድሚ ሕጂ ዘጋጢሙ ነይሩ ሓደ ብዙሓት ሰባት ቀቲሉ ንላይፍ ፍርዲ ቤት ተፈረደ ኣሎ መንእሰይ ሓደ ስፓኒክ so ንሱን ኣብነታት ኣብቲ ሶርስ ወይ ከዓ ሳይት ስረኺበ ነይረ ኣነ ንባዕለይኩም ብኸለኹም so I don't think so ብዙሕ ዘፍርህ ኣይኮነን ግን ኩሉ ሻዕ እንታይ እዩ ክንሪአና ላይ ኩሉ ሻዕ ከም ሕጊ እንዲፅዲቕዎ ዘሎ እቲ ሕጊ ከዓ ብደቂቕ ከዓ ኣብቲ ትራክ ምስ መፀ ሓቢርና ክንሪአና ብሓበራ ኢንፎርሜሽን ተልዩ ክንሪአና ካልእ ያ ሎማዓንቲ ሜይ 7 መወዳእታ መዓልቲ ኣሕዋት እቶም ናይ ኣይዲኹም ዘይቀየርኩም ሜክሹር ሪል አይዲ ዝብል ታሽሙ ግበሩ ሕዋት ክትገሹ ኣይትኽእሉንኹም ኣብቲ ዘለኹም ዲኤምቢ ወይ ከዓ ዘለኹም ዓዲ ብቕልል ዝበለ ኣፕላይ ገርኩም ኣብ ሓደ ስሙን ክመጻኩም ይኽእል እዩ ኣብ ዲኤምቢኹም ግን እቲ አይዲኹም ሪል አይዲ ካይህልወኩም እቲ ሪል አይዲ ምልክታቱ ይፈላለዩ ካብ ስቴት ናብ ስቴት ገሊኡ ስታር ኣለዎ ገሊኡ ኣሜሪካን ፍላግ ኣለዎ ሶ መጀመርያ እቲ ሪል አይዲኹም ቸግበርዎ ሪል አይዲ ቸገርኩም ኣብዲኤም ብኸይድኩም እዚኣ ሪል አይዲ ዳ ሪሰንትሊ ዘውፂኹሞ እንድሕር ኮንኩም ሪል አይዲ ክኸውን ይኽእል እዩ ብዘይ እታ ሪል አይዲ ግን ኣብ ዝኾነ ክትንቀሳቐሱ ትኽእልኹም ንማንም ፓስፖርትኹም ሕዙ ምስታ ፓስፖርትኹም ከዓ ኣይደኖ ከምዚ ከማይ እንድሕር ኮንኩም ካርድ ላት እታ ካርድ እውን ኣነ ላትኒ ኦርደር ግበሮ እታ ካርድ ከዓ ኢዚ ሒዝኩም ኪዱ ኣብ ፌደራል ኦፊስ ኣይተኣትኑኹም ካብ ፅባሕ ማለት እዩ ፍላይ ኣይትገብሩንኹም ስለዚ እቶም ሪል አይዲ ዘይብልኩም ሪል አይዲ እንተዘይብልኩም ሪሰንትሊ ኣብ ዝቐረባ ግዜ ተዘይወፂኹም አይዲኹም ተዘይሐድስኩሞ ዋላ እንተሓድስኩሞ ግን ገለ ስቴታት ዘይገበርኦ ነይረን ክኾና ይኽእላ እየን ቸክ ግበርዎ ሪል አይዲ ላይክ ሪል አይዲ ኢን ኮሎራዶ ንኣብነት እንተኢለኩም ናይ ኮሎራዶ ሪል አይዲ እንታይ ይመስል ጎ ኢሜጅ look this that star አላታ look this ትሪኢ ኣለኹም ዶ ፍልልይ ኣሎ that star this one the star is the real ID has it that star ናይ ኮሎራዶ ማለት እዩ this old here you go ናይ ኮሎራዶ look that ክብ ዘላ ስታር እያ ቅድሚ ሕጂ ከምዚ ነይርዋ ብለና ኣሎ so ንኣብነ ናይ ኮሎራዶ ሕጂ ንናትኩም ረኣዩ ማለት እዩ make sure أباب زلهم عادي ريل أيدهم تشجبروا تايز مثل أنا تاب كولورادو هجينات إزي الله أنا هجس لازم حدث كوه هج إزي الله تني this is the real ID one sample so أباب عادهم رأيو إمان نمجن like make it تا driver sorry no passportهم قشون دوركم كاب airport مول سوميم no way قتحال في تخلهم كاب airport so كاب airport مول سوميم تتنقوا before and after oh look this what before and after what is this what is the difference oh look this oh I didn't even tension I go clear Colorado ملكت على واسع let me see my ID too wow yeah I do I have it I am so lucky I have it look this زيالا انت اخذوا before and after لكم سيرش تجركم real ID device all ናይ Colorado نعملت إزي أنا هالكرايا إزي أخا دي إل إلا driver license دي ألاتا alright yeah I have both of them نايك أدم الناتين جيتا نايك أدم إزي أنا راتني إذا أنا هيجيجن إزي أستار ألاتا نابنت so أبستيتكم كيدكم real ID sorry real ID and then oh my god Jerome Powell is up sorry guys Jerome Powell is up not even oh my goodness I wouldn't even shown to you oh wow
and we believe that the current stance of monetary policy leaves us well positioned to respond in a timely way to potential economic developments. I will have more to say about monetary policy after briefly reviewing economic developments. Pardon me. Following growth of 2.5% last year, GDP was reported to have edged down in the first quarter, reflecting swings in net exports that were likely driven by businesses bringing in imports ahead of potential tariffs. This unusual swing complicated GDP measurement last quarter. Private domestic final purchases, or PDFP, which excludes net exports, inventory investment, and government spending, grew at a solid 3% rate in the first quarter, the same as last year's pace. Within PDFP, growth of consumer spending moderated, while investment in equipment and intangibles rebounded from weakness in the fourth quarter. Surveys of households and businesses, however, report a sharp decline in sentiment and elevated uncertainty about the economic outlook, largely reflecting trade policy concerns. It remains to be seen how these developments might affect future spending and investment. In the labor market, conditions have remained solid. Payroll job gains averaged 155,000 per month over the past 3 months. The unemployment rate at 4.2% remains low and has stayed in a narrow range for the past year. Wage growth has continued to moderate while still outpacing inflation. Overall, a wide set of indicators suggest that conditions in the labor market are broadly in balance and consistent with maximum employment. The labor market is not a source of significant inflationary pressures. Inflation has eased significantly from its highs in mid-2022, but remains somewhat elevated relative to our 2% longer run goal. Total PCE prices rose 2.3% over the 12 months ending in March, Excluding the volatile food and energy categories, core PCE prices rose 2.6%. Near-term measures of inflation expectations have moved up, as reflected in both market and survey-based measures. Survey respondents, including consumers, businesses, and professional forecasters, point to tariffs as the driving factor. Beyond the next year or so, however, most measures of longer-term expectations remain consistent with our 2% inflation goal. Our monetary policy actions are guided by our dual mandate to promote maximum employment and stable prices for the American people. At today's meeting, the committee decided to maintain the target range for the federal funds rate at 4.25% to 4.5% and to continue reducing the size of the balance sheet. The new administration is in the process of implementing substantial policy changes in 4 distinct areas: trade, immigration, fiscal policy, and regulation. The tariff increases announced so far have been significantly larger than anticipated. All of these policies are still evolving, however, and their effects on the economy remain highly uncertain. As economic conditions evolve, we'll continue to determine the appropriate stance of monetary policy based on the incoming data, the outlook, and the balance of risks. If the large increases in tariffs that have been announced are sustained, they're likely to generate a rise in inflation, a slowdown in economic growth, and an increase in unemployment. The effects on inflation could be short-lived, reflecting a one-time shift in the price level. It is also possible that the inflationary effects could instead be more persistent. Avoiding that outcome will depend on the size of the tariff effects, on how long it takes for them to pass through fully into prices, and ultimately on keeping longer-term inflation expectations well anchored. Our obligation is to keep longer-term inflation expectations well anchored and to prevent a one-time increase in the price level from becoming an ongoing inflation problem. As we act to meet that obligation, we'll balance our maximum employment and price stability mandates, keeping in mind that without price stability, we cannot achieve the long periods of strong labor market conditions that benefit all Americans. We may find ourselves in the challenging scenario in which our dual mandate goals are in tension. If that were to occur, we would consider how far the economy is from each goal and the potentially different time horizons over which those respective gaps would be anticipated to close. For the time being, we're well positioned to wait for greater clarity before considering any adjustments to our policy stance. At this meeting, the committee continued its discussions as part of our 5-year review of our monetary policy framework. We focused on inflation dynamics and the implications for our monetary policy strategy. Our review includes outreach and public events involving a wide range of parties, including Fed Listens events around the country and a research conference next week. Throughout this process, we're open to new ideas and critical feedback, and we will take on board lessons of the last 5 years in determining our findings.
A lot has happened since the last meeting. There's been tariffs put on, tariffs taken off, and meanwhile, there's a bill advancing in Congress. And I just wonder if I could press you on the last part of your statement. Are you any closer now to deciding which side of the mandate is going to need urgent care first?
Well, so as we noted in our statement, post-meeting statement, we've judged that the risks to higher employment and higher inflation have both risen. And this, by the way, of course, is compared to March. So that's what we can say. I don't think we can say, which way this will shake out. I think there's a great deal of uncertainty about, for example, where tariff policies are going to settle out. And also when they do settle out, what will be the implications for the economy, for growth, and for employment. I think it's too early to know that. So, I mean, ultimately, we think our policy rate is in a good place to to stay as we await further clarity on tariffs and ultimately their implications for the economy.
Hearing you describe what you're looking for in terms of being able to make a decision, it sounded like that's a long-term process before you sound like you're going to be comfortable, or the committee would be comfortable to act on what the data is telling you.
I don't think we know. I think if you look where we are today, we have an economy that, if you look through, the sort of distortions in Q1 GDP, you've still got an economy that looks like it's growing at a solid pace. The labor market appears to be solid. Inflation is running just a bit above 2%. So it's an economy that's been resilient and is in good shape. And our policy is sort of modestly or moderately restrictive. It's 100 basis points less restrictive than it was last fall. And so we think that leaves us in a good place to wait and see. We don't think we need to be in a hurry. We think we can be patient. We're going to be watching the data. The data may move quickly or slowly, but we do think we're in a good position where we are to let things evolve and become clearer in terms of what should be the monetary policy response.
Nick.
Nick Timmeros of the Wall Street Journal. Chair Powell, there's naturally a lot of PTSD around 2021 supply shocks, but there are some who argue that the current situation has notable differences. Energy costs are down, housing imbalances look nothing like they did 4 years ago. Labor demand appears to be gradually cooling, with wage growth running below 4%. What do you see right now that could nourish higher inflation beyond a rise in goods prices this year?
I think the underlying inflation picture is good. It's what you see, which is inflation now running a bit above 2%. And we've had basically decent readings in housing services and non-housing services, which is a big part of it. So that part, I think, is moving along well. But there's just so much that we don't know. I think, and we're in a good position to wait and see is the thing. We don't have to be in a hurry. The economy has been resilient and is doing fairly well. Our policy is well positioned. The costs of waiting to see further are fairly low, we think. So that's what we're doing. And we'll see. The administration is entering into negotiations with many countries over tariffs. We'll know more with each week and month that goes by where tariffs are going to land, and we'll know what the effects will be when we start to see those things. So we think we'll be learning. I can't tell you how long it will take, but for now it does seem like it's a fairly clear decision for us to wait and see and watch.
So when you say that you don't need to be in a hurry, does that mean that could the outlook change in such a way that a change in your stance could be warranted as soon as your next meeting?
As I said, we are comfortable with our policy stance. We think we're in the right place to wait and see how things evolve. We don't feel like we need to be in a hurry. We feel like it's appropriate to be patient. And when things develop, of course, we have a record of we can move quickly when that's appropriate. But we think right now the appropriate thing to do is to wait and see how things evolve. There's so much uncertainty. If you talk to businesses or market participants or forecasters, everyone is just waiting to see how developments play out, and then we'll be able to make a better assessment of what the appropriate path for monetary policy is. So we're not in that place, and as that develops, and I can't really give you a time frame on that.
Janelle Marte with Bloomberg. So many economists have been pricing in higher odds of a recession, and several are noting that it is more difficult for the Fed to cut rates preemptively given the higher risks for higher inflation. So given the outlook, do you still see a path for a soft landing, and what does that look like? Well,
let me say, so let's look back and see where we are. So to go through 2024 up to the day, we've had unemployment in the low 4s for more than a year. We've had inflation coming down now in the mid to low 2s. We've had an economy growing at 2.5%. So that is the economy as we see it now. What looks likely, given the scope and scale of the tariffs, is that we will see it's certainly the risks to higher inflation, higher unemployment have increased. And if that's what we do see, if the tariffs are ultimately put in place at those levels, which we don't know, then we won't see further progress toward our goals. But we might see a delay in that. I think in our thinking, we never do anything but keep achieving those goals. But we would, at least for the next, let's say, year, we would not be making progress toward those goals. Again, if that's the way the tariffs shake out. The thing is, we don't know that. There's so much uncertainty about the scale, scope, timing, and persistence of the tariffs. So that's that. In terms of preemption, I think you can look back at the 2019 cuts as preemptive. I wouldn't say that what we did last fall was at all preemptive. If anything, it was a little late. But 2019, we did cut 3 times. But the situation was you had a weakening economy and you had inflation at 1.6%. So that's a situation where you can move preemptively. Now we have inflation running above target. It has been above target for 4 years. It's not so far above target now. And we have an expectation, conditional on what happens, that we'll see upward pressure on inflation. If you look at where forecasters are, they're all forecasting an increase in inflation. So it makes it, and then we've also got, forecasts of weakening in the economy, and some have recession forecasts. We don't publish a forecast about that. We don't publish a forecast that assesses how likely a recession is. But in any case, it's not a situation where we can be preemptive because we actually don't know what the right response to the data will be until we see more data.
Colby Smith with the New York Times. How much weakness does the committee need to see, though, in the labor market and the economy more broadly to lower interest rates again? Is it about a certain increase in the unemployment rate over a period of time, or perhaps a certain number of negative monthly job reports? I mean, how are you making that assessment?
So first of all, we don't see that yet, right? We have 4.2% unemployment, good participation, wages behaving very well. Participation, I mentioned it at a good level. So, with the labor market, we would look at the totality of the data. We'd look at the level of the unemployment rate. We'd look at the speed with which it's changing. We would look at the whole huge array of labor market data to get a sense of whether conditions are really deteriorating or not. And at the same time, we'd be looking at the other side of the mandate. We could be in a position of having to balance those two things, which is, of course, a difficult balancing judgment that we'd have to make.
On that point about balancing, I mean, you've mentioned that the committee would consider how far the economy is from each goal and the time it would take to kind of get back to that point. But what does that mean in practice? I mean, how much of that assessment will be rooted in a forecast versus data dependence?
It would be a combination of the two. I mean, let's just say this would be a complicated and challenging judgment that we would have to make. Yeah, we're not in this situation, but the situation is if the two goals are in tension. So let's say that unemployment is moving up in an uncomfortable way, and so is inflation. Not the situation we're in, hypothetically, but we would look at how far they are from the goals, how far they're expected to be from the goals, what's the expected time to get back to their goals. We'd look at all those things and make a difficult judgment, and that's in our framework. It's always been in our thinking. We haven't faced that question in a very long time. So again, difficult judgment to make, and not one that we face today, and we may never face it, but we have to be keeping it in our thinking now.
Thank you. Edward Lawrence with Fox Business. So we had the CPI report that came out that showed month over month the first decrease in inflation in about 3 years. The jobs report, you said, solid, that we saw. At the same time, we have those new tariffs that we're living under. So given this, should the Federal Reserve be cutting rates at all this year?
It's going to depend. I think you have to just take a step back and realize this is why we are where we are. We're going to need to see how this evolves. There are cases in which it would be appropriate for us to cut rates this year. There are cases in which it wouldn't. And we just don't know until we know more about how this is going to settle out and what the economic implications are for employment, for inflation. I couldn't confidently say that I know what the appropriate path will be.
So following on that, just, so then how does President Trump calling on you personally, as well as the Federal Reserve, to make rate cuts affect your decision today and affect your job difficulty?
Doesn't affect our doing our job at all. So we're always going to do the same thing, which is we're going to use our tools to foster maximum employment and price stability for the benefit of the American people. We're always going to consider only the economic data, the outlook, the balance of risks, and that's it. That's all we're going to consider. So it really doesn't affect either our job or the way we do it.
Howard.
Hi, Howard Schneider with Reuters, and thanks for the time. I'm wondering, I mean, given the complexity about the first quarter GDP and what lies ahead, I'm just wondering what your intuition tells you about the underlying direction of the economy right now. Many of your colleagues have said they feel growth is slowing. If so, do you have any sense of by how much, to what degree the slowdown may be? What does your gut tell you about how things are evolving out there?
My gut tells me that uncertainty about the path of the economy is extremely elevated, and that the downside risks have increased. The risk is, as we pointed out in our statement, the risks of higher unemployment and higher inflation have risen, but they haven't materialized yet. They're not in the data yet. So that tells me more than by intuition, because I think it's obvious actually that the right thing for us to do is we're in a good place. Our policy's in a very good place, and the right thing to do is await further clarity. And there's usually things clarify and that the appropriate direction becomes clear. That's what usually happens. Right now, it's very hard to say what that would be. In the meantime, the economy is doing fine. Our policy isn't, it's not highly restrictive. It's somewhat restrictive. It's 100 basis points less restrictive than it was in, last summer. So we think it's in a good place, and we think the appropriate thing is for us to wait and see and get more clarity about the direction of the economy.
Well, let me press you on this idea of the economy being fine right now, because reading the Beige Book very closely the last time around, there was a lot of negative stuff, negative sentiment that was in there. And I know that everybody's looking at soft data right now. You mentioned it yourself that the sentiment's sour. But the Beige Book was talking about, the beginnings of layoffs in some industries, prices rising in some places, and an awful lot of investment decisions being pushed to the sideline. Doesn't that point to a slowdown?
It may well. It just hasn't shown up yet. And we all look at all these sentiment and read many individual comments just to get a better feel. And businesses and households very broadly are concerned and postponing economic decisions of various kinds. And yes, if that continues and nothing happens to sort of alleviate those concerns, then you would expect that to begin to show up in economic data. It wouldn't maybe show up overnight, but it would show up over weeks and months. And that may be what happens, but it hadn't happened yet. And also there are things that can happen that will change that narrative. I mean, they haven't happened, but it's possible to imagine things but in the meantime, yes, we're watching it extremely carefully like everyone is, but don't see really much evidence of it in actual economic data yet. And by the way, consumers keep spending, credit card spending. It's still a healthy economy, albeit one that is shrouded in some very downbeat sentiment on the part of people and businesses.
Michael McKee from Bloomberg Radio and Television. The Fed's been criticized recently by a former governor for what he calls mission creep. You take on more problems, use more tools, and then end up building tools to deal with the fallout of those tools, which then makes it a given that you will act more aggressively in the future. Is that a fair critique, and is that something you would be looking at in your framework review?
Sorry, say the critique again.
That the Fed has been involved in mission creep, gets involved in using too many new tools to deal with problems and to go too far. Is that something that the critique was based around the fact that you did QE and QE and QE and went beyond the narrow confines of your mandate?
So Well, I mean, there are a couple, that's not really beyond the confines of our mandate. Look, I would say this, we did things, essentially we're on an emergency footing for a couple of years in the pandemic, and it's very fair and very welcome for people to look back over what we did and say, hey, you could have done this better and different. And one thing we hear a lot is we could have explained QE a little better. We did think we were explaining it in real time. I completely accept the thought that we could have explained it better. There's a lot of thinking that we went on too long with QE. I can tell you that the reason we did was we were concerned that we didn't want a sharp tightening in financial conditions at a time when we thought the economy was still vulnerable. And so we did hold on for a long time to QE, and we of course tapered and everything. And then we immediately went into QT, and we're down a couple of trillion. But I get we certainly, with the benefit of hindsight, could have tapered earlier or faster. That's absolutely right. But this is all very welcome. We knew doing this in real time that we weren't going to get it perfect, and those kind of after action kind of looks are essential, and we're doing the same thing in our review. So on some issues.
The other part of that critique is that you've taken on topics that are outside of the mandate, such as climate change and trying to ensure that certain groups are benefited by your economic policies in terms of employment, et cetera.
So, okay, on climate, you've heard me say over and over again that we will not be climate policymakers, and that our role on climate is a very, very narrow one. And I think that's what we've done. We've done really very little on climate. You can say that little bit that we've done was too much, but I wouldn't want to give any impression that we've taken climate and it's something that we're spending a lot of time and energy on. We're not. We have very, very narrow things. We did one thing, one guidance for the banks, and then we did a one-time stress analysis, climate stress analysis, and that's it. And we dropped out of the network for greening the financial system. So we didn't do much on climate, but I do think, and I've said this publicly several times, I think it's a real danger for us to try to take on a mandate like that, which is very narrow application to our work. And the risk is if you go for things that are really not on your mandate, then why are you independent? And I think that's a very fair question. I do think we've done a whole lot less on climate than some people seem to think we did. Anyway, that's what I think.
Should you have taken on the question of bringing unemployment rates down for specific categories?
We didn't do that. What we said was that we never targeted any unemployment rate for individual racial or demographic groups. What we said was that maximum employment was a broad and inclusive goal. And I think what we meant by that was we're going to consider the totality of the country as we look at our maximum employment goal. Of course, we were never going to target any individual group with that, but I think some people, wanted to hear it that way, but that's not at all what we meant. So that's just not a correct reading of our, but I can see how, maybe people found that confusing, and we have to take that into consideration.
Jolene.
Hi, Chair Powell. Thanks for taking our questions today. I'm Jolene Kent with CBS News. You've said wait and see, and the economy is doing fine today, but the impact of tariffs are already showing up at the ports. Businesses big and small are telling us that they feel it, and most importantly, consumers say they feel it, that the challenges are here, and there's no waiting and seeing. For Main Street, what is the breaking point? What would have to happen to prompt a rate cut specifically?
Well, so we really don't see in the data yet big economic effects. We see sentiment, there are concerns that higher prices may be coming or things like that. So they're worried now about inflation. They're worried about a shock from the tariffs, but they really haven't. That shock hasn't hit yet. Okay, so we're going to be looking at the not just the sentiment data, but also the real economic data as we assess what it is we should do. And remember, there'll be two effects.
that, what did you think?
I don't have anything more for you on that. I've pretty much covered that issue. Thank you.
Chris.
Hi, thank you. Chris Rugaber, Associated Press. Well, I just wanted to follow up. Earlier, it sounded like you said it was unclear how the Fed, what kind of interest rate decisions you will make later this year. So does that, in March, there was guidance that 2 cuts might happen, 2 cuts were penciled in for this year. Is that now, that guidance from the last press conference, has that been overtaken by events at this point?
We don't do a summary of economic projections at every meeting, as you know. We do it every other meeting, and so this was the meeting when we didn't do it. And we don't also kind of poll people, so I really wouldn't want to try to make a specific projection for where we are relative to that. We will, in 6 weeks, we had the June meeting, and you'll have another SEP. I'm not going to hazard a guess here today as to what it would be. Again, what I would say is that we think our policy rate is in a good place. We think it leaves us well positioned to respond in a timely way to potential developments. That's where we are. And that, depending on the way things play out, that could include rate cuts. It could include us holding where we are. We just are going to need to see, how things play out before we make those decisions.
Great. And just to follow up on that, I mean, when you address the issue of how the Fed would handle both rising unemployment and rising inflation, how are you thinking about the fact that addressing one could exacerbate the other? So a rate cut to reduce unemployment could worsen inflation and vice versa. How do you handle those challenges?
You just captured this is the issue with the 2 goals being in tension. It's a very challenging question. Now, there can be a case in which one goal is very far, one variable is very, very far from its goal, much farther than the other. And if so, you concentrate on that one. And frankly, that was the case. Well, it wasn't a case where they were really in tension, but if you go back to 2022, it was very clear that we needed to focus on inflation. The labor market was also super tight, so it wasn't really a trade-off. I think what our framework document says. It says we'll look at how far each variable is from its goal, and also we'll factor in the time it would take to get there. So, that's going to be potentially a very difficult judgment, but the data could break in a way that it's not. I just don't think we know that. The data could easily favor one or the other, and right now there's no need to make a choice, and no real basis for doing so.
Victoria.
Hi, Victoria Guida with Politico. I wanted to ask, Congress is currently debating spending cuts alongside extending the tax cuts. And I know you've talked many times about how the path of the debt is unsustainable, but given that we're also talking right now about the economy slowing, potentially even recession, I was just wondering, is there a danger that spending cuts now could slow growth a lot more?
We don't give Congress fiscal advice. We take what they do as a given, and we put it in our models and in our assessment of the economy. So I wouldn't want to speculate on that. I mean, I think we do know that the debt is on an unsustainable level, on an unsustainable path, not at an unsustainable level, but an unsustainable path. And it's on Congress to figure out how to get us back on a sustainable path. And it's not up to us to give them advice.
Well, do you think that they should take macroeconomic conditions into account as they look at this?
I think they don't need my advice and our advice on how to do fiscal policy any more than we need their advice on monetary policy.
Andrew.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Andrew Ackerman with the Washington Post. In your Jackson Hole comments last year, you said you would not welcome further cooling in labor market conditions. The unemployment rate then was 4.2%, which is what it is now. Many forecasters now predict a higher jobless rate. How has your tolerance for weakening labor market conditions changed compared to a year ago?
So it was quite a different situation. What was happening last year is that over the space of 6, 8, 7 months, the unemployment rate went up by almost a full percentage point. And it was click, 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 click each month. And everywhere people were talking about downside risk to the labor market. At the same time, payroll job numbers were getting softer and softer. So there was a really obvious concern about downside risk to the labor market. And so at Jackson Hole and then in September, we wanted to address that forthrightly. We wanted to show that we were there we'd been there for inflation for a couple of years. And we wanted to show also that we're there for the labor market. And it was important that we send that signal. Fortunately, since then, the labor market has really, and the unemployment rate have really been moving sideways at a level that is, well in the range of mainstream estimates of maximum employment. So that concern has gotten a lot less. So, you're at 4.2% unemployment. I think we were in a very different situation. Now we have a situation where, the risks to higher inflation and higher unemployment have both gone up, as we noted in our statement, and we've got to monitor both of those. We actually have a potential situation where there may be a trade-off or tension between the two, potentially. We don't have it yet, and we may not have it, but that's what we have, and that's why I think it's a very different situation.
I guess I want to follow up by asking how much of a rise in the jobless rate you could tolerate.
I can't give you I'm not going to try to give you a specific number. I'll just say we have to now be looking at both variables and which of them is demanding. If one of them is demanding our focus more than the other, that would tell us what to do with policy. If they're more or less equally distant and equally or not distant, then we don't have to make that assessment. The assessment is you wait. So I'm not going to try to be really specific about what we need to see in terms of a number. But if we did see significant deterioration in the labor market, of course that's one of our two variables, and we would look to be able to support that. You'd hope that it wasn't also coming at a time when inflation was getting very bad. And again, we're speculating here. We don't know this. We don't know any of these things. It's very hypothetical. We're just going to have to wait and see how it plays out.
Thanks.
Claire Jones, Financial Times. In terms of getting some clarity, we've got some talks at the weekend in Geneva between the US and China. A lot of economists are attaching an awful lot of importance to what we hear from those talks. How much importance are you attaching to them in terms of judging what will happen to the US economy going forward? And just in a similar vein, some economists are saying it's days, not weeks, that we have until we start to put the US economy at risk of seeing the sort of pandemic era shortages and higher prices if we don't kind of soothe relations between the US and China. So it'd be good to have your view on that too.
So, these are not talks that we're in any way involved in, so I really can't comment directly on them. But what I will say is this, we had, coming out of the March meeting, the public generally had an assessment of where tariffs were going, and then April 2 happened, and it was really substantially larger than anticipated in the forecasts that I had seen and in our forecasts. So, and now we have we're in a new phase where it seems to be we're entering a new phase where the administration is beginning talks with a number of our important trading partners, and that has the potential to change the picture materially or not. And so I think it's going to be very important how that shakes out. But we simply have to wait and see how it works out. It certainly could change the picture, and we're mindful of not trying to make conclusive judgments about what will happen at a time when the facts are changing.
And just on the fall in shipping volumes from China over these tensions, do you share that concern that we could start seeing goods shortages and higher prices in the coming weeks if this isn't resolved very quickly?
I don't want to get we shouldn't be involved even verbally in the questions about the timing of these things. Yes, of course we follow all that data. We see the shipping data, we see all that, but ultimately this is for the administration to do. This is, this is their mandate, not ours. And I know as you can see, they're again beginning to have talks with many nations, and that has the potential to change the picture materially. So we'll just have to wait and see.
Kosuke Takami with Nikkei. Thank you for doing this. The volume of imported goods increased significantly in the first quarter. Do you think that this situation could cause a delay in the impact of tariff on inflation? And does this mean that it will take longer time to reduce uncertainty?
The decision we made today? Which decision?
So the future decisions. So the volume of the imports, imported goods increased significantly. So the impact of on the imported inflation may delay. So what is the impact to your future decision?
Okay, so I mean, I think we think that there was a big spike in imports, right? Very big, historically large, really, and to beat tariffs. And now that should actually reverse, so that it's the difference between it's exports minus imports. So and imports were huge, and so that it conveyed a very negative contribution to U.S. GDP, annualized GDP in the first quarter, as we all know. So that could, in the second quarter, be reversed, so that we have an unusually large contribution to usually positive. That's very likely as imports drop sharply. You could also have, very likely you'll have restatements of first quarter. It'll turn out that consumer spending was higher. It'll turn out that inventories were higher, and so you'll see those data revised up. It may actually go into the third quarter too, and so I think this whole process is going to a little bit make it harder to make a clean assessment of U.S. demand. I mentioned private domestic final purchases, which doesn't have inventories, government, or inventories, government. Anyway, it's a cleaner read on private demand, but that too probably was flattered a little bit by by strong demand for imports to beat tariffs. So that might overstate. It's a really good reading, 3% PDFP in the first quarter. That might actually overstate. So it's not really going to, I don't think it's going to affect our decisions. I will just say, though, that it's a little confusing, and it's probably less confusing to us than it would be to the general public as we try to explain this. It's complicated, and GDP is sending a signal, PDFP is sending a signal. It's a little bit confusing, but I think we understand what's going on. It's not really going to change things for us.
Courtney Brown from Axios. I guess, we talked about some of the indications of potential layoffs, price hikes, and economic slowdown, all being evident in the soft data. I'm curious why the Fed needs to wait for that to translate into hard data to, make any type of monetary policy decision, especially if the hard data is not as timely or might be warped by tariff-related effects. Are you worried that the soft data might be some sort of false warning?
No, I mean, look at the state of the economies. The labor market is solid, inflation is low. We can afford to be patient as things unfold. There's no real cost to our waiting at this point. Also, the sense of it is we're not sure what the right thing will be. There should be some increase in inflation. There should be some increase in unemployment. Those call for different responses. And so until we know, potentially call for different responses. And so, until we know more, we have the ability to wait and see. And it seems to be a pretty clear decision. Everyone on the committee supported waiting. And so that's why we're waiting.
Just a very quick follow-up. There was this sort of vibe session, if you will, where the sentiments expressed in soft data did not translate into the hard economic data. How are you thinking about that when interpreting some of the signs in the softer survey data?
I think going back a number of years, the link between sentiment data and consumer spending has been weak. It's not been a strong link at all. On the other hand, we haven't had a move of this, speed and size. So it wouldn't be the case that we're looking at this and just completely dismissing it. But it's another reason to wait and see. You're right, though. We had a couple of years during the pandemic where people were saying just very downbeat surveys and going out and spending money. So that can happen, and that may happen to some degree here. We just don't know. This is an outsized change in sentiment, though, and so none of us is looking at this and saying that we're sure one way or the other. We're not.
Matt.
Thanks, Chair Powell. Matt Egan with CNN. So you mentioned earlier
Focused on achieving our dual mandate goals of maximum employment and stable prices for the benefit of the American people. Despite heightened uncertainty, the economy is still in a solid position. The unemployment rate remains low, and the labor market is at or near maximum employment. Inflation has come down a great deal, but has been running somewhat above our 2% longer run objective. In support of our goals, today the Federal Open Market Committee decided to leave our policy interest rate unchanged. The risks of higher unemployment and higher inflation appear to have risen, and we believe that the current stance of monetary
Stop identity thieves in their tracks with a free credit freeze. When your credit information is frozen, no one else can get a loan or credit card in your name. The fastest way to freeze.
Briefly reviewing economic developments. Pardon me. Following growth of 2.5% last year, GDP was reported to have edged down in the first quarter, reflecting swings in net exports that were likely driven by businesses bringing in imports ahead of potential tariffs. This unusual swing complicated GDP measurement last quarter. Private domestic final purchases, or PDFP, which excludes net exports inventory.
Is it down? Huh. Guys, CNN I don't know what happened. Is that only mine or? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, what do you know? Jerome Powell, what do you know? What? اسمع الله خدي صبوا اسكي سامر خنجبرنا بحنساب. Yes, already. Yeah, بيني صبوا جهرت أمي والله بزيا أنت هيجرو أنت هيلو. يعني إيش تبي توسخي كن وسخلن. I think so. What do you know? Right? Right? CNN and the hat to follow it was cut off. Let me see if there is. The Khana Hello what cut off. Or about I think so he's done, but let me make sure that.
Relative to our 2%. Total PCE prices rose 2.3% over the 12 months ending in March. Excluding the volatile food and energy categories, core PCE prices rose 2.6%. Near-term measures of inflation expectations have moved up, as reflected in both market and survey-based measures. Survey respondents, including consumers, businesses, and professional forecasters, point to tariffs as the driving factor. Beyond the next year or so, however, most measures of longer-term expectations remain consistent with our 2% inflation goal. Our monetary policy actions are guided by our dual mandate to promote maximum employment and stable prices for the American people. At today's meeting, the committee decided to maintain the target range for the federal funds rate at 4.25% to 4.5% and to continue reducing the size of the balance sheet. The new administration is in the process of implementing substantial policy changes in 4 distinct areas: trade, immigration, fiscal policy, and regulation.
Let's go. I think so it's done.
The tariff increases announced so far have been significantly larger than anticipated.
Yes, he's done. He is done. He is done. He's done. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Cut off Gerata Hakai Sami? Cut off Gerata Maslani. Yeah, let's go to summary. Temps Alna Allah Zana X. We'll go there. By the way, Trump and Tyler have Masilukum hijab X the Trump. Oh, rate cut. I gave a rate cut. Governor Roy look Zarabi Majamaria Trump and the sun is taken a halifa. follow جبروا تنحلكم دحرس عاد حرقة تعذبوا هم إكس تويت كجبري بمقطع entirely you make sure if I have in the right thing Okay. So ፎካሱ ኣሕዋት ተሪኢኹሞ ኣበይ ነይሩ ንዝብል ሕቶ I like this source ጽቡቕ ገይሮም ዝፀምቆም እዚኣ back all the way from here እቲ ቀይሕ ዘሎ ጥራሕ ክንመጽእ ኢና okay ካብዚ ክንጅምራ so ጀሮም ፓወል እንታይ ኢሉ ክርኢ ንኽእል ኢና higher inflation ኢሉ higher unemployment ክርኢ ንኽእል ኢና so ንሕና further progress ክንገብር ኣይንኽእል ኢና ምክንያቱ ኢንፍሌሽን ሲ ካብ ዘለዎ ንላዕሊ ክኸውን ይኽእል እዩ unemployment ካብ ዘለዎ ንላዕሊ ክኸውን ይኽእል እዩ ኢኮኖሚካ slow down ክኸውን ይኽእል እዩ that's stagflation ዝበልና ዓንተ ዝገለጽናያ ማለት እዩ so ንሳቶም ግን ዝኾነ ነገር ክገብሩ ከም ዘይክእሉ እዮም ተዛሪቦም ማለት እዩ ምክንያቱ ናይ ቀረጽ እዛ so delay ክርኢ ንኽእል ኢና ዋላ ናብ next year ክሓልፍ ይኽእል እዩ rate cut ኢልና ኣሎ look this what we could see delay on getting the goals for the next year yeah next year ክሓልፍ ይኽእል እዩ delay so በቃ ብሰንኪ ቀረጽ ብሰንኪ ታሪፍ ንሕና ፕሮግረስ ክንገብር ኣይከኣልናን ምኽንያት ንሱ ጥራሕ ይዝገልጽ ነይሩ ማለት እዩ so yeah we will not make progress on goals this if tariff stays በቃ እዚኣታ ቀንዳመይቲ ነጥቢ ሕዋት ጽቡቕ ገይሩ በኣ ጽሒፍዋ ነይሩ ናት ቀረጽ ትራምፕ ኣብታ ጽሒፍና ኣብታ ኣብኣ ዘላ ንህለኩም ናይ ተወየብና ኣብኣ ዘላ ንሳዕ ትራምፕ እንድሕር ዝኾነ ነገር ተዘይገይሩ ንሕና ፕሮግረስ ክንገብር ኣይንኽእልን ኢና እያ so okay ካልእ ደስ ዝበለትኒ let me say that ዘንብባት ፀናሕኩ ዓሚ ኢሉ ዝሓለፈ ዓመት እቲ ዝቆረጽናዮ 100% ንሱ like ዳርጋ ደንጊና ክንብል ንኽእል ኢና more like easy ክንከውን ነይሩና ዝብል ናይ ዓሚ ቁርብ ጠቂስዎ that's why stock marketና ሃው ዝኾነ ማለት እዩ ካልእ there are cases in which rate cut would be appropriate for this year yeah cases ዝኾነ ኣጋጣሚታት ክህሉ ይኽእል እዩ ሕዋት ማለት ብሓፂሩ ታሪፍ ቀረጽ እንድሕር suddenly ተረዳዲኦም ወይ እውን ጠጠውን ተቢሎሞ ወይ ገለ ነገር እንድሕር መጽዩ ያ ዘይንቆርጸሉ ምክንያት ወላ ሓንቲ የለን so ሕጂ ግን ዝኾነ መንገዲ የብልናን ሕጂ ቁኑዕ መንገዲ ዝበሃል የብልናን ከመይ ጌርና ኢና ሬት ክንቀርጽ እዮም እቲ ቀንዲ ዕላምኡ ማለት እዩ let's get the rate what the federal should like so ብትክክል ኣጽኒዕና ንሪኦ ኣለና we are watching ማለት ነቲ ማርኬት ንከታተለልና ኢሉ of course GDP ወይ ከዓ gross domestic product ወይ ከዓ ውሽጣዊ ሃብቲ ኔጌቲቭ ወይ ከዓ ዳውን ኮይኑ ከም ዘሎ ርኢና ኣለና unemployment ግን very steady ብጣዕሚ ታሕቲ እዩ ዘሎ about 4.2 እዩ ዘሎ ወላ ኢንፍሌሽን ረኺብና ዘለና low እዩ ዘሎ ግን ብሰንኪ ናይ ታሪፍ ላዕሊ ክኸውን ይኽእል እዩ yes good key wants beyond the okay not this one okay we couldn't be cheaper key earlier faster in the highest tier okay let's get pulse like yes this is ኣብዚ ኣንልኩም ነጥቢ ኣገዳስቲ so depend well like ናበይና መንገዲ ከም ንኸይድ ናበይና play ከም ንገብር play out ከም ዝገብር በየናይ ከም ንኸይድ maybe rate ክንቆርጽ ንኽእል ኢና ወይ ከዓ hold ክንገብሮ ንኽእል ኢና that's all I don't know ብጣዕሚ ተንጹራት ዘለዋ ንሳተን so ብዛዕባ ናይ summary projection ናይ ማርች ዝገበርካዮ ተሓቲቱ ክልተ rate cut ከም ዘለካ ኣብዛ ዓመትኻ ገሊጽካ ኢሉ so እንታይ ትሓስብ እዚ we cannot make now projection ገብራ ንኽእልና until June መጽየመም እንደገና ታሰመር ይኽቡና so ኣብ ጁን ትመጻና ብጣዕሚ ጁን 18 ብጣዕሚ ኣገዳስቲ ኣሕዋት ኣብ ጁን ትመጽእ ኣብዛ ጁን እዚኣ ትመጽእ ናይ ብሓቂ ኣገዳስቲ ምክንያቱ ሳመር ኣለና ሳመር ከምዛ ኣብዚኣ ዝረኸብናያ ከምዚኣ ልክዕ ኣላትና ከምዛ ትሪእዋ ዘለኹም እዚኣ that is a big one so እዚኣ ኣብዚኣ ትህበና number ኣገዳስቲ 2.9 ኣላ sorry 3.9 ኣላ ክንደይ ትህበና ኣብ ጁን ድሓን ጽቡቕ ጌርና ሽዑ ክንገልጾ ኢና ሓበሻ ኤዱኬሽን ክንምለስ እጅና ኣብቲኣ ሶርስና okay ብምቕጻል ናይ ካብ ጁን ናይ ንዝመጽእ ዓመት ናይ 2025 ክልተ ግዜ ድና ወለድ ክንቆርጽ ዋላስ ሓንሳብ ድና ንዝብል so ጁን ክንዛረበሉ ኢና ኢልና so ንጹር ዝኾነ መንገዲ ከዓ ክሳብ ወርሒ 6 ክህልወና ይሕዋት ዳታ ክነግረና እዩ ካልእ more focus ዝገብረሉ ነበረ ሕዋት ኣብ ዳታ ሕጂ ንሪኦ ኩሉ ዳታ ክንርኢ ኣለና unemployment rate እንታይ ክመስል ኣሎ suddenly ላዕሊ እንድሕር ከይዱ unemployment rate well maybe rate cut ክኸውን ይኽእል እዩ unemployment rate next week last week so ነዚኣ እዩ ዝገልጻት ዘሎ look this ነዚኣ 4.2 እዚኣ እንድሕር ሃይ ኮይና maybe rate cut ክንገብር ንኽእል ኢና ግን still ኢኮኖሚ ከዓ ስሎው ዳውን ከም ዝኾነ ነዚ ያገልጻሉ ማለት እዩ let's back again yeah so look this حوات ነዚኣ እንታይ ኢሉ ገሊጽዋ ነዛ gross domestic product ዝሓለፈ ሪፖርት ዝረኸብናዮ تا gross domestic product ዝረኸብናዮ ኣብ ናይ ዝሓለፈ Q share ይገብርክልኩም እንዴ as a whole hold on as a whole share ይገብርልኩም ኣለኒ ይመስለኒ guys sorry ነቲ ካልእ ሶርስ እንዳርኣኹም so ነዚ ኣርኣይዋ ነዛ ኔጌቲቭ 0.3 ዝረኸብናያ እዚኣ ትሪኡ ኣለኹም ነዛ ኪው ብምንታይ ኢሎም መዓንቲ ብኸመይ ገሊፅዋ መሲልኩም okay Q1 consumer spending and inventories could be revised up so yes በዚኣ ምክንያት ኣለቶም እቲ consumer spending and inventory እንድሕር revised up ክኸውን ይኽእል እዩ ዝብዘሎ ሳ ኔጌቲቭ ኮይና ዘላሲ who knows positive ክትከውን ትኽእል እያ ወይ ከዓ lower ክትከውን ትኽእል እያ so economy is okay ወቃ ኣብ ጽቡቕ ኩነታት እዩ ዘሎ ዋል ኔጌቲቭ ኒና ረኺብና ዛ ዓይነት ሕቶ ይመጽዮ no revise ክኸውን ይኽእል ንሱ up ክኸውን ይኽእል እዩ as long as inflation unemployment low እንድሕር ሃልዩ okay let's go ጽቡቕ all right yes look this out GDP data will not really change things for us بحصير بسنك GDP down مخانو ولا حنت نقبر أين خلنا نتايلنا GDP ندحر كوينا down كوينا عن طب نتايلنا look this حوات so stagflation يو كفر زلو مالتي so stagflation نهلكم زي أبزي أبزي so GDP lower ندحر كوينا okay GDP lower يا then انتاي خون دخل so stagflation كقاتم يخلي so stagflation كأنتاينا لا economy slow down كون كله unemployment high كون كله inflation كا high كون كله so انتاي بزلو نحنا بناي data GDP not change for us maybe Q2 زمت like our حي شو عتقصو negative كنركب نخيلنا well let's see انتايو كنرينا كن كله قطبا clarity خم زي بقولي بقى قليسنا alright I think so is in so let me see if I have it somewhere here too it's good of course helwani yeah I like it let me go with this guy where he at New York Times انتاي نصحفو عنتو look this حوات Powell 2024 rate cut weren't primitive then if anything it was a little late so last year see dongina بحالتيوم راي ب 100% ويكا 1% راي 1.00 راي كات زغبرناس دارغا دونغينا بحالي last year so that is the market نا قرب اللوت زرعتلا ازيا عباي نطبيع ولا كيوتون كنقبر نيرنا عن تبطريقهم ما بزي بصحى نيرا الثاني والسامس رانايا okay let's go to X again سلازي يا كال let me back again نابزي من البات صرف نغير خريه so بحثيرو تعريفي تي نحنا مور فيد كات كنقبر نخلينا مال تناي تعريف اندحر نوكسيشن ابتسمع اندحر صبو صتا مصيو ወይ ወንስ اندحر ተወዲዩ زي نقرصلو ريت كات يبلنان مخنيت يبلنان يبزلو سو خنرينا خلينا okay I think so that's all that is all تزحز صنح كسورس let me finish بزانا يبين حونا so كل شيء انت تقطبا ستاك ماركت حوات كلاريتي ويكا لايك انت كمزي كنقبرينا ازي نزبل حتو انت حر زي مصيو خوينو نصرنت انت زي بلو خوينو اما قدي ستاك ماركت كل شيء داون از خول مالتي so right on the data ابل صنيحو data زمصانا ابل لرو data زمصانا كنغرنا data ناي منتاي outcomes of tariff so data rate outcome of tariff ما اسيخ مصانا عنتو متو غليص يا نير احوات let me back that ناب اخ خيده جون PC consumer price okay so data نينا data بتخكل زغلص زلو back it as a whole هيغو داتا ابناي زقرص زي مساتوي اب قطبا مس معاسي خر ازخل لك تسحوات نحنا مارتي كونن ولا ناي أبريل ماي 13 نرخبو CPI report ناي inflation حجازي كونني ولا لو كوني غلي CPI معناته ناي ور 4 داتا إنا هري سو داتا خد لي زغل ناي ور 5 ناي زل ناي ورحي ناي زل ناي ورحي ناي ور 6 ور 7 قط ناي زل 3 ور داتا خري خلي نبتا عنت وزبلنا إنا هنملس سلازي كاب ور 8 نينو زلو بقى أور 6 زر داتان أور 7 زر داتان أور حي 6 7 زر داتا أقداسيو نمسكرم ريت كاتكوب مهنياتو هجز قبرو زلو ترام تاريف ويكا قرص بتخكل هجاتي له اوكي ور 5 دنا ور 5 داتا أور 6 إنا هريو دنا ور 6 أور 7 إنا هريو نا ور 7 أور 8 إنا هريو ريبورت نركب مالتيو أبزن لكم زعلاتات زي مالتي شعوز هبنا داتا نصرنت ويكا كلاريتي كهلو نازغل هجيكن كلاريتي زبهال يبلنان نحنا ولا حنت خنقبر اي نخئلنا زحالف عامت كن يس كنقرص نيرنا اتي ولا ايزي ولا اتي مونيتري بوليسي اتي جنزبون مور سكيزون كنقبر نيرنا لايك مور ايزي كنكون نيرنا بهالاي I think so that's all زي ان تندلوانا لما عنتي مثلني Yes, let me see what you have. When the economy is weak, prices are rising. Yeah, many people are out of work. Yeah, true. Thank you. So, I don't know why neta GDP تأشم جير وايد قطلان. True. بين بزي أقولي سؤاله. معناته نحنا GDP ندحر lower مسيو, economy ندحر lower مسيو. Alright, Q2 earning one lower كوني. معلش أتاوجاتن كمباني أزي واحد كوني. أو رحي ما أسنا هرقين ورحي شو عته. سعو ور شوعات ندحر لور إنا بقى بزحات unemployment high ندحر كوينو مور نعا فايت قبري unemployment high ندحر كوينو نعا قتا أكتو قبريم inflation كا low ندحر كوينو قتا أكتو قبريم inflation low كنبلا أين خلينا هجي جنا ناي تعرف أي أتوان زلو سلازي أمود أتنايزا فيديو أبرهالو دحابي كساب I don't think so ورح شدشن ورح شوعات داتا خنرقن لنا أنت عين الداتا أين خنري please حزلي unemployment rate CPI وي أكن the CPI PC خرينا دحين unemployment rate PC إزي أنا نتنك عندي GDP is not matter رايكون عنده policy monitor يسرحون most focus am أكلتي ترحم بزح عدو علنا هلو ويك بزح سب أبصراحة نقص أمد عندنا ها واقعات ناي نبرتون more high نخاي كون إزي أكلتي أمز قالس so ناتو مصنعت PCE أبزي أنا لكم look this زيا يا GDP more focus كم زي قبر لا يقليس لنا هجي زين سلستين GDP نيجاتيف زلوا خنري أنا خلنا by the way زين unemployment rate زيا NNPC زين سلستين here you go this three is the most important نعنا مالي so نايزي ان data زمت ناي GDP data زمت unemployment rate زمت ناي PC زمت زي خن بالكلنا جن ناي تعرف أتيو up to market مس عندري كم زين ناي ما كنازر أنا عن تبوا مالتيو plus زيا سامر زيا كابجون كري أنا خلنا انت إلنا زلو as of this year كلتريت كاتب لنا له انت مالت ازيا 3.9 على حوات رأي وازيا ده 3.9 زلا مسناي Fed's fund rate انت رينا 4.33 لا ده منس 3.9 4.33 almost 0.543 حسبوها so 0.25 كلتريت كات كم زلا يزحبرنا زلو as of now ازيا اندحر تغييرها أنا جلات تندحر متيا نوريت كات ندحر كينو بعد so زيكم قرص نخلينا إليو أحوات انتاي إلو زيكم قرصون نخلينا انتاي as long as انتي تعرف اندحرالي أوكي ترامب انتاي قبري هاي حتونا ترامب إذا هلا alright he's gonna Twitter now gets a you hey Jerome Powell you didn't do nothing like come on stop that's not your fault that's sorry guys okay let me see if there is any tweet given the given منال واتابتا اشمه اللي خوني 3 minutes okay that's about World War victory now 3 minute tweet given your come on okay I couldn't no I didn't say that I'll share قبركم he is gonna say something for sure yeah Trump fire قبرك حسبي لا تونا no إلوا السؤال Trump ونو by the way I think so that is all I have خدق معي عن تبوناي كاردي مثلا الشراء قبر كلكم ماركتنا about yep Tesla is way down نبتا way big support 272.68 أحوات كابزي breakdown حرقرة Tesla we might see tomorrow 260 if there is anything news تزي متي ماليتو Yeah, the QQ is almost about 478. I don't know. Nvidia is very bad. Down, all down. Why? Yes, because like third decision and then trade outlook to earning. Oh, there is some earning too. Crypto. Oh wow, crypto is a little down too. It was 97, but who's gonna happy now? Bonds down. That's good. Gold. Where are you? Gold. Yeah, gold doing down. Okay, that's fine. By the way, good neg. About ነገር ኣብዚያ ጎልድን ቋ ግሪን ኣይኮነ እንደገና ቦንድ ኳ ግሪን ኣይኮነ እዚን ጎልድን ቋ ግሪን ኣይኮነ so but correct itself ክትከውን ያ I was remembering something ዘኪረ ነረ let me see let me see ብራ አለ ወደ ሓወባይ oh sure ኣይኮንክ እንደ ዛረብ ጸኒሕታ sure ኣይኮንክ ያ ናይ አይዲ ካርድ ንእሽተይ ከብለልኩም ኣሕዋት ኣብ ዘለኹም ዓዲ ስቴት ከድኩም ያ ነዚኣ ክደ ሸር ዘለኹም እዚን ኣሕዋት ኣብቲ ዘለኹሞ ንኣብነት ናይ ኮሎራዶ ሪል አይዲ ኮሎራዶ ቫይስ ላይክ ኦልድ ኢለ ንኣብነት ሰርች ገይረ ኣለኹ እዚ ረኺቦ ኣለኹ ቀደም ነበረና አይዲ ናሕና ናይ ኮሎራዶ ከም ትሪኦ ዘለኹም እዚኣ ዲኤል ኤንድ ዛ ስታር እዚኣ ኣላታ ሕጂ ግን እቲ ሪል አይዲ ግን እዚኣ ንህለኩም ኮሎራዶ እዚኣ ምልክት ቀይሮም ፕላስ እዛ ስታር ከዓ ከም ዘላታ ማለት እዩ ስለዚ እዚ ቢፎር ነይሩ እዚ ከዓ ኣፍተር ኣሎ ሶ ሪል አይዲ ኣለዎ እዚ ሰብ እዚ ማለት እዩ ሶ ኣብዚ ግዜ እዚ ኣብ ዘለኹም ስቴት ሪል አይዲ እንተዘይብልኩም ካብ ሎማዓንቲ ሶ ዳ ሚንስ ኣብ ዝኾነ ናይ መንግስቲ ወይ ከዓ ናይ ፌደራል ኦፊስ ይኹን ወይ እውን ፍላይት ኣብ ውሽጢ ዶሜስቲክ ክትገብሩ ኣይትኽእሉን ኢኹም ሶ ሜይቢ አይዲኹም ኣብ ዝቐረባ ግዜ እንድሕር ቀይርኩሞ ግን ሰርች ግበርዎ ሪል አይዲ ወርኤቨር ኣብ ዘለኹም ስቴት ከም ዝበለቅ ካሊፎርኒያ ክትብሎ ትኽእልኹም ፎርኒያ ንኣብነት ማለት እዩ ያ ሶ ቸክ ኣውት ግበርዎ እቲ ሪል ኤንድ ን ኦልድ ኤንድ ባድ ሪል አይዲ ንህልኩም ንኣብነት ካሊፎርኒያ ሎክትስ እዚኣ ንህለኩም ቤር እንን እዚኣ ከዓ ናይ ቀደም ነበር ፌደራል ሊሚት ኣፕላይ ማለት እዩ ሶ this is the real ID this is ናይ ቀደም ነበረታ አይዲ ማለት እዩ እዚኣ ከምዚኣ እንዳገበረ ከምፃልኩም እዩ yes ክትፈላልይዎ ኣብ በብስተትኩም ላቦ ተማቢኤስ ትነብሩ እዚ ናይ ግድን ካብ ሎማዓንቲ ጀሚሩ ክትሕዝዎ ዘለኩም እዚ ክትሕዝዎ ተዘይክእልኩም ግን in case መገሻ ተልኩም ወይ in case ናብ ፌደራል ኦፊስ ተኣቱ እንድሕር ኮንኩም yes ፓስፖርትኩም ወይ ከዓ ግሪን ካርድኩም ገለመለ ሕዙ ማለት እዩ ኣይከእትውኹም እዮም ፍላይ ክትገብሩ ነኹም እዚ ግን very easy ኣብቲ ዘለኹም ዲኤም ከይድኩም ኣሕዋት ቀሊሉ ቀይርዎ maybe I don't know በዘለናይ ዓዲ $7 $11 ክትከፍል so do that change it ሳያ ዘለሃን ናይ መጨረሻ nothing else ጀሮም ፓውል ሰሚዕኩም ኣኹም ወላ ሓንቲ ንፅርነት ኣይረኸብናን ከም ዘለዎ ይጸኒሑ yep ያ ሸር ኣይጸናሕኩም ሕጂ ግን ሸር ጸኒሕ ሪል አይዲ right yeah thank you so yep that's it yeah United States and China እዚኦም ናህና that is ቀዳመ ሰንበት ብጣዕሚ big days ክህልወና ዝኽእል እዚ እዩ እዚኣ this is a big day ማለት እዩ yeah work permit works I don't know work permit course federal እንዳኸትወሃቦ work permit okay can we use a work permit instead of real ID let me search it together guys no work permit no abrahalo wada hawbay no here you go no work permit it says no in here yeah no work permit well I-766 issued by US the Immigration Service US says not direct replacement of the real ID compliant driver license or state ID hold on okay wait a minute let me search about it okay can you use the work permit stick flight My bad. Yes, you can use it, guys. You can use it. You cannot drive, but again, you can fly. Yes. Yes. Thank you. Good point. My goodness. Who asked that question? Yes. So can we use a work permit instead of real ID domestic flight? Yes. A work permit specifically employment authorization, accepted form of identification, domestic flight in the United States, starting May 7, 2025. My bad. So the real ID compliant driver license or ID is required for domestic flight, but other form of identification like foreign passport or AID are still acceptable. Yeah, كتكم تغلها. Either way, yes. Work permit, yeah, federal, yeah, of course, yes, yes, yes. Yes, yes, you can use that. Work permit, and then of course green card, passport, not United States. So yeah, make sure we are speaking like 5-6 days. Go ahead, apply, man. $10, $11 apply, please. Yep, if there is any question, I will take now. If not, I will see you guys. بين زبلا زلو بزي conclude كجبرات video كلت نجر actually إن أنا نصبه هجي كلت نجر إن أنا نصبه زلنا خاب لما عنت مالتي big 2 ways. All right. مجمرة trade deal stock China and the United States and تايك مسلي رأينا حنتي and then أطرح هذا this is gone. All right, this is gone. No more. Trump announcement expected انت يخبل الناس بخل ويصبح ويدحر صباح مالتي كابزين كلتين it's Trump significant دخونه big زخونه announcement كم زلني يزقل زلو إذا انت أنا مرت انت أنا نبل 10 شوعات هجرات سمن معاتين الله ناتن deal ديخ نجرنا ويكا كم زي universal دخونه 20% يخبرنا we'll see what happened. Hello, hi, how you doing? Hey, okay, all right, I'll be there. Sorry. Then then click be abs weekend screen so market is not happy today. Thank you so much. All right, I'll see you guys. Videos I will see you mañana. Data maharna. I will see. Thank you. All right, bye bye. You are the best, brother. Take care, guys.